So it's been about 2 weeks since Khamzat Chimaev dominated DDP, and yes, the fight was very boring, but he very clearly won every single round, and DDP simply just didn't have much to offer, which is pretty crazy to say, considering how much hype there was for that fight. So ever since UFC 319, I've been wondering, who even beats this guy? And that's exactly what I'm gonna try to get to the bottom of in this video. And what I'm gonna do here is that I'm gonna go over some potential future opponents for Khamzat and break down how well they match up against him.
And here's the thing, you guys, I'll wrestle Chimaev.
That's right, we're starting off this banger of a video with Sean Strickland. And he's obviously not going to be Khamzat's first title defense, because he hasn't done anything since getting dominated by DDP himself. However, Strickland and Khamzat have history, they've trained together, and as of late, they've been going back and forth a lot. Mainly Strickland, who's talked a lot of schmack, and it makes this into a very sellable fight, which could happen in the near future. Now that said, I think it's going to be very tough for Strickland. I think he maybe will be able to survive on the ground because he has proved to be a pretty good defensive grappler. However, he's never faced a grappler of the same caliber as Khamzat, and even if he is able to survive, Khamzat is capable of below maxing now. And the only way to be able to beat that is by making Khamzat work on the ground. You need to make him use up energy in order to gas him out in the later rounds. And I just don't think Strickland's grappling is good enough. Now, he does have a clear striking advantage, but he lacks power and he won't really be able to put away Khamzat in the small striking windows that he gets at the start of every single round. So Strickland's only way to win this fight is if Khamzat goes out 100% in the first round. And I can already see the comments. Oh, Khamzat has improved cardio now, he proved it in the DDP fight. And yes, his cardio might have slightly improved, maybe. Like, we don't really know because the fight was so slow paced that he never really had to expend that much energy. So, in my opinion, it didn't really prove anything when it came to his cardio. Now, even if Khamzat chooses that approach, I still think he has a very good chance of submitting Strickland in the first round. But it's a higher risk approach in my opinion for him. But I don't really think he would approach the fight in that way anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Unless Strickland pisses him off enough in the build-up. But that said, this is a clear Khamzat win in my opinion. But pump the brakes, man. If we're talking about Deshaun Strickland, it's a little bit different, okay? I think he get it done, especially if it's taking place in Chirac. That's home turf for Deshaun Strickland. I think he will walk into either Tucker to the O, Don't Like, or Love Sosa, do-rag on, blunt in the right hand, hitting in the left hand, and I think he sneaks in a switch with him and puts him on his shirt with a jab and a T. Bang, bang! But let's move on to the next potential opponent, and that is RDR. That's right, DDP's long-lost cousin, and I think he has some things going for him in this matchup, and it's very possible that he could be next in line if he gets past Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. But as I said before, Red Dead Redemption does have some crazy tricks up his sleeve. First of all, he has a very good BJJ game, and Soy Jutsu usually is not too good for MMA in my opinion, as a base at least. But in this case, it has proven to be effective against Khamzat, because he didn't really want any business with Burns on the ground. And I understand that Burns probably has better BJJ than RDR, but it's a step in the right direction though. Like, RDR is someone who could potentially make Khamzat expend more energy on the ground, and he also might take more risks than Dricus because he's more confident in his ability to defend submissions. Now, I also want to say that he also has things going for him in the striking department, especially those knees. They can be very effective in this fight because we know Khamzat is prone to gassing out, and those knees are a perfect tool for that. I mean, look at the Whitaker RDR fight. Whitaker was completely drained after like the second round, and if you can land a couple of those on Khamzat, we could see him lose some steam and not be as dominant in the grappling. Now, to be fair to Khamzat, he isn't a horrible striker offensively. He can crack, man. He has very solid power. I mean, he knocked out the GOAT GM3, and that's pretty scary if you are a The Ritter fanboy, because RDR never moves his head. He's extremely hittable, and I'm gonna be honest, outside of his knees, RDR is pretty garbage on the feet. So on the feet, I wouldn't really say Khamzat is at a big disadvantage because they both had things going for them in the stand-up. Now, even though RDR does stylistically pose somewhat of a threat to Khamzat, I still wouldn't pick him in this fight because he's too much of a goofy goober, man. I'm joking, but first of all, I don't see him submitting Khamzat on the ground, and the reason for that is when Khamzat takes you down and uses the lay and pray strat, he doesn't posture up in order to deal damage. He rather plays it safe and focuses mainly on control. And he mixes in some pitter-patter punches here and there, so it's gonna be on RDR to take those risks and try to escape, and that's when Khamzat could snatch up a submission. And I also just think Khamzat is way too good of a grappler, and I know RDR was able to reverse Bo Nickel, who in terms of pure wrestling is better than Khamzat. Well, I said it guys, I know Bo Nickel sucks, but when it comes to MMA wrestling, that's not the case at all, and especially not his grappling on the ground. Khamzat is just way better there, and I know Burns was able to threaten submissions off his back, which made Khamzat stand up, but that's lighter man skill Burns. He's a defensive wizard on the ground, and even if RDR threatens submissions off his back, which make Khamzat go, hold on, but I don't want any business with this guy, Khamzat still has a pretty good chance of chinning him on the feet, so in my opinion, Khamzat gets the W here, although RDR does have some things going for him in this matchup. But let's move on to the next opponent, and that is Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. And this is the most hyped up opponent for Khamzat, and I can understand why. Obviously the reason for that is his cardio, but he's obviously good in other areas as well, like his grappling and his boxing, but the real meat and potatoes is his pace. He's middleweight Marab, bro. Well, I take that back. He doesn't fail as many takedowns, but you get what I mean. The idea is that in this matchup, he will be able to make Khamzat expend energy, and it's kind of like the same argument you would have for RDR. However, I would say the RDR is better on the ground, but Fluffy Hernandez pushes a high pace in general, and when he keeps such a high pace, he takes high risks in general too, which is why we often see him in trouble early in his fights, but as his opponents slow down, he completely takes over. And I think the fact that he takes more risks might actually favor him here, because he will give more opportunities for Khamzat to go for submission, which will lead him to expending more energy. But this is also a double-edged sword, of course, because he could legitimately submit Fluffy. Khamzat really is that good, and I kind of think that is what's gonna happen in this fight. Khamzat probably takes him down early, Hernandez scrambles in order to try to escape and gives up his back. Khamzat takes it and snatches up a rear naked choke. And he's just too good on the ground, man. You gotta nerf this guy. But I can understand the argument for Fluffy, because if he survives, Khamzat is in for some real trouble. Now let's move on to Imavov, and he could be next in line if he gets past Boralho. And right off the bat, he does have an OV in his name, which automatically makes you into an elite grappler. And it's also worth noting, he is originally from Dagestan as well. Now that said, I'ma be honest, Imavov probably gets folded up real quick in this fight. He does have a very clear advantage on the feet. He's one of the best strikers in the division. However, I don't think he has the right attributes to cause problems for Khamzat. He just doesn't have that good cardio, he slows down a lot in his fights, and he isn't really that good of a grappler either. And he's not the right kind of a grappler, if you know what I mean. Like, the argument for RDR is that he's a BJJ guy, he's good from his back. You know, he might be able to escape from dominant positions, and maybe even threaten submissions off his back. And Imavov doesn't have that. And he doesn't have the insane cardio that Hernandez has. And I've seen him get controlled and clinched by people like Strickland and Cannonier, so he's definitely not stopping the takedown. Ain't no way, okay? Ain't no way. And he's not challenging Khamzat on the ground in any way possible. So the only thing he has going for him in the grappling department is the OV at the end of his name. So I think Khamzat subs him or wet blankets him. But let's move on to Boralho. And Boralho could also be next in line if he gets past Imavov, of course. And I'm gonna keep it short here as well. I don't think he has too much to offer Khamzat. And don't get me wrong, I don't think Boralho sucks or anything, but he's definitely the weakest out of the fighting nerds. And Khamzat is just that good, and it's gonna be real tough for Boralho. And even though he is a decent grappler, I don't think he has an answer for the control of Khamzat, especially not the new patient Khamzat. Like, the problem went from just surviving on the ground for the first round to trying to get up to your feet while not giving any opportunities to Khamzat. It's just so difficult. You quite literally have to be perfect. And Boralho just isn't him. He is a very dangerous striker though, I'll give him that. But like you've probably figured out by now, it doesn't really matter at all if you never get the opportunity to strike. So yeah, I'm obviously going with Khamzat here. I mean, Boralho doesn't even have an OV at the end of his name to carry him. He's cooked, okay? But in conclusion, Deshaun Strickland beats him, of course. And Hernandez and RDR2 have the best chance, but they still lose in my opinion. But you might be wondering, why are you not talking about the takedown defense? And I just don't really think it matters that much. Because when Khamzat shoots that double leg, good luck, bro. That's all I'm saying. I'm joking, but no matter how good your takedown defense is, you are gonna get to the ground in this fight. It's plain and simple. Unless if he's gassed in the later rounds. But that said, I think that's it for today, guys. Check out my last video where I reacted to Khamzat beating DDP. But anyways, thanks for watching. Leave a like, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Who do you think beats Khamzat? Am I just a Khamzat glazer? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And also don't forget to share this video to your whole family. And I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye!